big is his hole?
The average age is 49 years old. Okay, Boomer.
Young and the vibrant versus the old and the boring.
Yes, well, tonight on The Whip, a retail advisory group ends before time. Liquid natural gas in our future. Is it our future? And is it a levy, or is it a tax, or is it an unforced error? And politicians on X, should they really be on there? With me this evening, Guyon Espiner, the host of Midday Report. Guyon, kia ora. So good to have you, particularly because it's such a busy day for you.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Good to be here, Wallace. As you know me, I can't resist talking politics.
Indeed. Now, and beaming in from the Press Gallery studio in Parliament, and first time on The Whip, we have RNZ's Lillian Hanley. Kia ora, Lillian. Lovely to have you here.
Tēnā tātou I tēnei pō. Good evening, lovely to be here.
Nice to have you, Lillian. And our journalists are joined by former Labour MP, held portfolios, including that of Minister of Police, Poto Williams. Poto, kia ora. Nice to have you on The Whip this evening.
Kia ora Anna. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful panel lined up, lots to discuss. But firstly, though, our one quick quiz question for The Whip. Politics adjacent this evening, so panel, hold your tongue. This is for the listeners here. What couple played with the iconic Buzzy Bee toy while on a visit to Government House in Auckland? So that again, what couple played with the iconic Buzzy Bee toy while on a visit to Government House in Auckland? Text us 2101. Would love to hear from you. First to this, though, a surprise review into the Reserve Bank's management of COVID-19. National has been highly critical of what's been called a money printing binge the bank underwent to keep businesses alive. $55 billion worth of digital money printed at the time, and the OCR set to a record low. Finance Minister Nicola Willis says those moves led to steep inflation and asset loss, but is the review necessary? Why now? I'll start with you, Lillian, actually. Has this been the talk of the gallery or Parliament this evening? It's quite an interesting move.
Yes, I have to say it was a bit of whiplash coming into work today that that press statement landed sort of just before 1 o'clock, which is not too long before the politicians head into the House for question time at 2 o'clock, of course. And so it was the talk of the town as the reporters headed up to question the ministers. So this, it's not entirely clear why this is happening now, right? Nobody is questioning that this is a warranted inquiry.
Yeah.
In fact, many people have been calling for it for years, but it's not clear why exactly this is happening now. Of course, you had the Finance Minister, Nicola Willis, point out that she's had many other priorities, she might say, on her agenda in terms of the Reserve Bank, and so she just hasn't really quite got round to it until now. But of course, the opposition has been quick to point out that the public report will be out in September, just before the election.
I'm wondering, I'll get to you soon, Poto, but I'm wondering, again, if this might raise further questions and capture the political narrative about specifically the timing of this. It seems to be, we're in a very busy period, it is election year, and this.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a couple of years to do this. I mean, the time to do it was either when you first got into government or perhaps after the election to drop it, a couple of months or 6 weeks or so before the election. Does look a bit cynical and does look to also play into that boundary in terms of what should be an independent policy making and scrutiny of an independent institution. So it does look like they're playing politics with this a bit, and it does look a little bit cynical in terms of timing.
What do you think, Poto? I mean, you were in government at the time. With the benefit of hindsight, do you think the Reserve Bank made the right moves, and did you think that you got it wrong printing $55 billion?
Well, of course, to kick it off, the RBNZ and the Monetary Policy Committee are completely independent, and decisions they made, were supported and, well supported by the Labour government at the time. I think I have to say, the timing is curious, and it may be that the Finance Minister has a sense that the previous inquiry didn't go far enough, and perhaps she has some valid reason for wanting to conduct the inquiry now. The timing is convenient, yes, there's no doubt about that, but also, given that it is such a significant inquiry, I'm not sure that she's going to get what she actually needs from it. We're just about in March. The politicians will be leaving Parliament to campaign at the end of June. There is not much time left, basically, in the cycle to get this work done. So it may be that she, feels that perhaps there is some value in it in terms of it being a convenient time to drop it, but I'm not sure that she's actually going to get what she needs from it, given the time crunch.
No, do we know what, Lillian?
I was just going to jump in that because that's sort of the frustrating thing from it. This is really quite important to happen, and now that it's sort of come out and seems to be disingenuous in why they're doing it, that could taint the outcome of it. I just want to point, in terms of what Guyon was saying around that it does seem to be a political move in this. You had the Prime Minister coming out onto Bridge and being asked about this, and he constantly was referring to the choices of the Labour government, and he had to be reminded by a reporter that that's actually fiscal policy and not monetary policy, which is what the inquiry was about. But he would continue to bring it back to that, and there is that little line in the announcement of the inquiry that does allow them to tie that together, right? It looks at the coordination of monetary and fiscal policy. So they're enabling the inquiry to be politicised.
Hindsight economics, Guyon, is a tricky thing, isn't it? It's hard to get right, because I can recall very clearly, in fact, I did a bit of a search on the RNZ site about sort of businesses struggling, because businesses were really struggling in that time, and there was quite a call for money to be released to help businesses.
Well, that's right. Even the greatest critics of spending taxpayers' money, like the Taxpayers Union, took that government money for their own taxpayers' union staff losses. Jordan Williams is. I've had discussions with him about this before, and they accepted that money. So, it is an interesting thing if all these years later to now say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. It is hard to look at this as though it's just purely the need for an independent inquiry, especially to drop it a couple of months before an election.
You're on the whip. Lillian, one final point?
Yes. Well, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure that there is much politics left in COVID, to be fair.
Really?
I'm not sure that there is. I think people have moved on. I think people are really wanting to move on. So perhaps that might not play into the finance minister's hand.
That's an interesting observation. Not much politics left in COVID. 7:40. Yeah, with the whip with Lillian Hanley, Guyon Espiner, and Poto Williams. And
I guess. To respond to that, apologies for the delay in that, but I guess because it also allows for, it's a discussion about the economy, right? So it's not necessarily just tied to COVID, but potentially the situation that we are in now. And given we're in election year, it allows the government to point back and say this is why we're in this situation. Right. And given we don't know how the economy will be exactly during that election campaign, they'll be wanting to be able to point to other reasons, perhaps.
Interesting, very good. Now, really big response to our quiz question, so we're going to come to that soon. But to this, now, is it a levy or the tax? Will it save us money or cost us more? All these questions wafted into view after the government said it would build a liquefied natural gas import facility in Taranaki. Energy Minister Simon Watt said the $1 billion terminal will be paid for by a levy on the power companies and will ultimately result in lower power prices for consumers.
The levy will not be passed on to households. Households will see a net savings as a result of this investment, and what that means for households is savings on their power bill.
Some critics say it'll do the opposite. This is Australian energy expert Mark Ogue on the panel.
From the Australian experience, the one thing for sure is that the only reason that you would start relying on liquefied natural gas, LNG, is if you wanted to pay very high energy bills, because liquefied natural gas is a very, very expensive form of energy.
Should we start with you, Poto? I mean, do you agree with Chris Hipkins and the Taxpayer Union on this? Is the levy really a gas tax? Does it matter?
There's been lots of juicy phrases thrown around about this, including the gas tax. I think really that there's a couple of things in this for me. The first one is I don't know any example where costs imposed upon an organisation weren't then pushed onto the consumers. So I'm with the camp that believes that this is going to cost consumers in the end. The other thing is that I'm not sure why we are talking about old technology when we really need to be looking for solutions that bring us into the modern world in terms of our energy supply. We're going to need more and more of this of energy, and I know that they're looking at this as being the opportunity to manage, during those dry years. But really, we've got so many other options we should be looking at that will be much better for the environment. That doesn't mean that we are continuing to use fossil fuels.
Yeah, the arguments are going to start coming, aren't they, Guyon, about sort of particularly around the reignition of battery power. You got your Lake Onslow, but then again, businesses saying, "Hey, we want surety, and we want it quick." And what we've heard with reports is that some major companies, they're a bit frightened about the runway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, energy security and supply is absolutely critical for New Zealand. You have to remember, though, that the report that was delivered to the government ministers midway through last year, the Frontier Economics report, said that an LNG terminal would be a last resort, and they weren't really terribly favourable on that idea. So it is interesting to see that that's the one that the government has gone with. And, regardless of that, the sales job over this levy hasn't exactly been flash, has it? Just when they were lining up to say that, that Labor and the Greens were going to tax anything that walked or moved, here they come with this levy that isn't a levy, that sort of quacks and walks and looks a lot like a levy. So it's been quite interesting to watch from the sidelines.
Actually, Lillian, politically, do you think what do they call them? Advisors, handlers? I don't know. Do you think isn't that what they do? It's like a game of chess. Isn't politics like a game of chess? And you think two steps ahead?
Yeah, you would hope so. You'd hope that you would be advised or think through how something might be received. And in this case, it seems as though, there's been commentary around that it was perhaps a little bit naive of them to not consider that that particular part of the policy would be criticised or at least asked more about. And of course, it was an opportunity for the opposition to take a swipe. So I just wanted to pick up on Poto's point that the cost, the government actually did get official advice which said although the levy would be on generators, the cost would likely be passed on to consumers. And so this became the key issue, whether it was a tax or a levy. That sort of was a bit of a side point. The issue remains that the cost was going to be put on consumers. And then I think it was probably Foreign Affairs Minister Winston Peters who kind of just pointed out, well, in the first instance, there is a tax, right? The first step is that there is a tax, and then you potentially get the secondary kind of the goods come back to you.
Well,
so
that's right.
That's what they talked about.
It is fair to be fair to the government. I mean, they're saying that when you wash all this through, consumers will be $50 a year better off, which is, $1 a week, so it's not massive. But and this would presumably be from 2028 when this LNG terminal, which is north of $1 billion in cost, kicks in. But yeah, they are saying that in the wash-up, their advice is that you'd be $50 a year better off. That takes into account the levy as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm wondering...
And that's the frustrating thing, right? Because ultimately there is that positive a result of it, but it seems as though they when you put it to Minister Simon Watts, he sort of refused to acknowledge anything else. There wasn't kind of any answering of the other questions because they just kept coming back to the fact that there was this net benefit. So it seemed as though that was the advice, right, to continue speaking about the net benefit, but then it doesn't answer the fact that they have essentially put a tax on people despite Christopher Luxon saying no new taxes.
Yeah. Perhaps, just to come back to your point, Wallace, perhaps this was an idea that was a little rushed. They hadn't thought it through properly, and they hadn't actually done the work on making sure that they had the package all ready to go. I think it sounds as though there's some stuff in the background that they, it just sounds a bit rushed to me. It sounds as though they were looking for a good news story, and this happened to be it, because they have committed the kind of the ultimate sin, really, and that something that they normally would use to hit the Labour Party about the head with has been turned around and has really come home to roost with them.
Interesting. Final point, Lillian?
Energy is going to be such a massive topic of discussion throughout the election, I think. And this announcement, to the government's credit, they have made some moves around the issue of electricity costs. And, it can be argued whether they're good moves or not, or they go far enough or not. But actually, this particular announcement also allowed for Minister of Resources, Shane Jones, but speaking, as New Zealand First Deputy Leader, he wants to take to the New Zealand First AGM the issue of splitting up the gentailers, and that's something that he ultimately would like to campaign on. And of course, Chris Hipkins, the fact that they focused on the issue of tax or levy meant that Chris Hipkins again didn't have to put up an alternative. What is Labour going to do about the electricity issue? But he's also left the door open potentially to that conversation around splitting up the gentailers, so we might see that.
Energy very much on the cards this election year. Very interesting. Thank you. It's 7:48 on the whip. Guyon Espiner, Lillian Hanley and Poto Williams, former Labour MP, joining me this evening. Thank you so much for, a lot of feedback coming through on the topics. Thank you for that. But to this, now, our one quick quiz question for the whip. What couple played with the iconic Buzzy Bee toy while on a visit to Government House in Auckland? Joining us in Tāmaki Makaurau, Andrew, kia ora.
Hi, Wallace, and hi, panel. Hello.
How are you this evening, Andrew?
Oh, I could not complain. Thank you. I hope you are well as well.
You're just locked to the radio. Good for you. Now, who was the couple?
I believe it was Prince Charles and Princess Diana.
Go on.
Yeah, I think.
Is he right?
I'm sure, and I can see in my mind the photograph.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, the famous Buzzy Bee.
And Andrew, who was the baby?
I think it was Prince William, was it not? I mean, to be honest, I only know it from the photo. I wasn't born until 1990. But I do recall Prince William being presented with one at a later visit. So, I remember the photo from that.
It's just that photo, isn't it, Poto? It just stays with you, eh?
It does. That adorable romper suit that Prince William is wearing at the time on a rug on the lawn at Government House. Just beautiful.
Yeah. Andrew, good on you. Thanks for listening. And of course, gosh, Lillian, talking about the Royals back in 83, it's different days, isn't it?
Oh dear.
It's different days.
This is an area which I am not an expert.
Just happy days.
I'd just also like to make a point, though. Andrew,
times.
born in 1990, who said that people in their 30s don't listen to the radio?
There you go. That's exactly right. Good on you. All right. Nice.
Steering away from the Royals.
Nice to have your company. Now, to this on the whip. Now, a moment for the Ministerial Advisory Group. Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith confirmed this week that the group will shut up shop 4 months early. It was set up with the aim to provide the government with ideas to combat crime, but it almost immediately got labelled by the opposition as a stunt, and 3 out of 5 members resigned in the space of a month. Poto, I'll start with you. As a former Minister of Police, is a group like this at all helpful in any way?
They can be, and in fact, there have been lots of ministerial advisory groups on specific topics, and there's no doubt that retail crime is a very hot topic amongst the public of New Zealand. So having a ministerial advisory group is a sensible idea normally. The fact that we had lost 3 of the 5 members in relatively quick succession does speak to some problems within the advisory group. Sunny Kaushal is a flamboyant character, and I'm sure that he tried to make best efforts. But I'd have to say that it did sound as though his leadership of that particular advisory group was a little was questioned in the end, really, to lose so many people. Retail crime is one of those tricky and difficult areas to deal with, because we're talking about thousands of businesses up and down the country, small businesses that are in our local community. So it does really speak to the heart of community safety. And I think Sonny himself is a very good advocate for safety for dairy owners and small business owners. I'm not sure that given the way the advisory group has just now disbanded early, that potentially he wasn't the right person to lead that. But they, as Minister Goldsmith did say, he did produce some pieces of work which were really valuable, and he highlighted the impact of retail crime on our community. So there's a little bit of give and take in all of this. It was an enormously expensive exercise, but done well, these advisory groups are really useful, and they
Lillian,
can be.
I mean, this is, speaking of sort of politics, topics that get people invested. You're talking about a issue that reflects across small businesses across the mortar here. But the question is, was it worth $1.8 million for this advisory group?
Is that for me, Wallace?
Yeah, Lillian, sorry.
It's an extraordinary amount of money for the amount of time that they were operating. I would be questioning that, that's for sure. And there's no doubt that some of the costs that have been, that have come forward from this were extraordinary, and probably wouldn't, in a normal advisory group situation, probably wouldn't have cost quite so much. So the Minister has got some questions to answer in that regard. So it's a big topic, useful topic to have had an advisory group, but as I say, disbanding it, 3 members leaving so early, and great people. I mean, I know Caroline Young from my time with the police, and her advocacy for retail across the country. And if she is leaving due to issues with the board, there's definitely something going on there that needs a little attention.
Wallace, I'm glad Poto answered the money question. I can't quite bring off the top of my head kind of the costs of other ministerial advisory groups. I don't know what they cost normally, or how long they're in play, and how many people are involved, that sort of thing. But I have to say that it doesn't look great for the minister, right? This has been a group that has been plagued by various stories, and the kind of dropping of 3 of the members in quick succession doesn't bode well. And the thing I thought was interesting this morning, when Minister Goldsmith was on Morning Report, and Corin was asking him about whether he'd actually looked into some of those issues, right, when they were raised, he didn't really give a clear answer as to whether he did or not. He said he talks to Sonny often, but it's not clear what actually those issues were, and whether they were investigated, and whether they were settled or not. And so, the minister can say, oh, well, the group's done its job, and so it's good to wrap it up early, and we can save some money, etc. But I don't know, it doesn't bode well. And given these ideas were, one of the criticisms being that Sonny brought these sort of ready-made ideas, I guess. Labour's Ginny Anderson has dismissed those ideas. That Labour said that they brought Sonny Cushaw brought those ideas to Labour for free, and they dismissed them as ineffective and unsafe.
I'll just bring Guyon in. I mean, what interests me is how fast this topic went, because it wasn't that long ago where Caroline Young came out and saying, look, it's an unpleasant environment, so I'm going to leave. But on the back of that, Paul Goldsmith said, look, I've got full confidence in this government. That wasn't that long ago. Next minute, gone burgers.
Yeah, I think, it's one of those situations where it's risky, isn't it? You see a similar kind of situation with a Mike King type character, where, look, they have, controversial ideas, and Paul Goldsmith said, look, he wanted that. And Sonny Cushaw is in that similar sort of frame, and we need that. We need people with different and new ideas. So good on them for putting those ideas out. But you also get, with a person like that, who's a bit controversial and a little bit edgy, you're going to get some of that blowback as well. And it looked like that's what happened there too. So Paul Goldsmith thought, we better cut his losses, and he's wound this group up early.
It is a 4 away from 8. Now finally on the whip with Lillian Hanley, Guyon Espiner and Poto Williams. So Andrea Vance has this stonker of an opinion piece which drew the ire of Winston Peters on X, goodness gracious, saying that Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok is producing sexualised images of women without consent. This is Andrea saying this, and pornographic depictions of children, also citing the European Commission, who's called it disgusting. And Andrea says, look, here in New Zealand, our politicians, Chris Hipkins, Chris Luxon, Winston Peters, David Seymour, they all put out official tweets on the same platform. Is it time to distance themselves? Is their continued use a form of tacit endorsement? A strong opinion there. Around the panel on this, I mean, Guyon, how relevant now is X in your journalistic day?
Yeah, I still look at it. I don't participate in the debates on it. I'm too frightened to do that. You just get piled with sort of bots and disinformation. But it does get difficult, doesn't it? It's a bit like that trade thing. Oh, we can't trade with anyone who we don't like, and you end up going, well, which countries would we trade with? I mean, you know, is Mark Zuckerberg? I mean, he's hardly a paragon of virtue. You've got that. You've got Jeff Bezos at Amazon, and once you start knocking everyone off, what platforms would you actually go on? So it does get a bit difficult in that respect, I think.
Briefly, Poto?
No, I completely agree with Andrea's stance in her piece. I think this laissez-faire a view that we have, an approach that we have, does us no good as a society and a community, and we have to stand up for these platforms which are, we have these devices connected to us for large parts of the day, and they are informing us in our views and our opinions. And I think it's time we actually...
Should Chris Hipkins get off X?
I would encourage all politicians to really consider the platforms that they are on, because...
Where should they go then?
Why don't we find platforms that are actually healthy and robust and allow us to have proper debate without this terrible stuff that happens?
Lillian.
Very quickly, just one of the points that Andrea Vance makes in this article is, that in New Zealand, X holds just over 6% of the social media market. So, I mean, it's fairly small, right? But I do think it's an issue that we should grapple with, and particularly in an election year where you do have politicians that are speaking to their supporters through their own platforms, right? There's sort of no mediation anymore.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's something to grapple with. Is what I'd say.
We came too late on this one. I'd be more. We should have got more into it. Hey, what a great show! Thank you so much, Guyon Espiner, Lillian Hanley, kia ora, and Poto Williams. Thank you so much
Kia ora.
for being with us.
Thanks, Wallace.
All right, and that's us. Stick around because Emile Donovan and Knights is up next.